Welcome back to the Mothers of All Crime. This week we have a special guest. We have a fellow true crime enthusiast, our dear friend Katie. She's a longtime listener, first time caller. We're thrilled to have her here today as we talk about Lori Vallow and the Sins of Our Mother documentary series. How are we doing, guys?
Doing
Welcome.
great. Thanks for having me, guys.
So happy to have you. So happy to have you. And happy to talk about Lori Vallow. We've been meaning to for forever, but I think all of us going to Arizona together kind of pushed us on this topic, which is fun. Kind of feels like almost like we know her.
Yeah, I feel like there were a couple times when we were in Arizona, it got brought up from just random conversations as we drove through the state. And it's kind of fun to look at a case that is in the area that we're in. We've talked about
Hmm.
some in New Jersey in the past. So it's kind of cool to like travel to a location that someone else's. And she's like, oh,
Yeah.
she's alive and kicking, even up to new shenanigans we'll get to another time. But it's kind of fun to talk to someone who, again, is more current than some of the other people we've talked about.
Yeah, that's true. This docu series is from 2022, and I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed it. Sins of Our Mother on Netflix.
hmm Yeah,
I
it
feel
was
like
great. I watched it. I watched it on the plane, and yeah, it was a great documentary.
perfect time to watch a series. Kills the time.
hmm
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely took in a lot of different perspectives I thought was good. I do
Hmm.
my only complaint is to take it with a grain of salt because it only really involved her family members. It didn't take
Hmm.
that many people from an outside perspective, which
True.
can get a little tough sometimes because you're only hearing people who were emotionally involved. So, not necessarily peripheral friends or police or things like that we've seen with others. It was mainly her eldest son, her mother
hmm
were the two, I would argue, like main focuses of the documentary series.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good point. I don't think we didn't get a lot of like impartial opinions about it, like kind of outside perspectives. That being said, it was so interesting to hear the perspectives of the eldest son and her mother.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, real, especially her mom. Like, I feel like it's so interesting to see how parents kind of deal with their child. It's
Absolutely.
just
And I love
becoming a
like
murderer. Go
the
ahead.
incorporation of all the photos and the videos and body cam footage is always a great way to kick something off. Because it just feels like you're very involved. Like because there aren't really experts in the documentary and it's all people who are genuinely emotionally impacted by these events. It's a different perspective. It's not an unbiased approach for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And like we start off the series with PD footage. They drop you right in, which
Mhm.
as the series goes kind of contextualizes it, I think,
Mhm.
because it's a really good like catcher, right? It's interviewing her ex-husband with the police footage and really just the concern that he has about Lori and her potential for danger, which out of context sounds like he's crazy, but then you
Mhm.
slowly learn information through the documentary. And I'm like, nah, he was on the ball. Like,
hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe
Because
that's why they did it like that because you almost get the same experience of being like that police
yeah,
officer. Because you just see
exactly.
yeah,
this crazy guy and you're like, oh, he's a crazy guy. But yeah, you're right. As
Right.
the series goes on, you realize that
Es- Especially
he was
because
probably the most sane one that was
oh,
in that
100%,
family.
100%.
definitely. And this is one of her Lori's fourth husband, Charles, who I only knew who he was. Like I followed the case when it was happening. So when the documentary started, I knew who it was, but they don't explain who it is. They just open it up with this man
hmm
who's out of his mind talking to the police saying that his wife is crazy, she thinks he's a zombie, like she's gonna murder me, she's lost her mind, like in the beginning of the he doesn't know where his kids are. And it is a great way to open it, definitely gets you interested to watch the rest of it. And then I guess we reference a couple of the things of Lori's kids because, like I said, she's been married a few times, 5 now, but 4 at that time, and she has 3 different kids from different situations. Um, so the
Yeah,
first husband, we don't really know anything about, right?
they didn't even mention him in the documentary, to be honest, which I thought was weird. I had to Google it because I was like, I could have swore there was another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it was very brief. Like she got married soon after graduating from high school, and it was very quick.
Yeah, her first husband, she was married in 92. Her second husband, she was married in 95. So not exactly long lived.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And do we know if she was in the LDS church for all these marriages, or is that something new?
That is a good
Ooh.
question. I think, to my understanding, she's always been LDS, but it would be really
Mm-hmm.
interesting to know if she was sealed to any of them because the
Mm-hmm.
unsealing
Hmm.
process in the LDS church is really, like, to my understanding, a high bar for them to unseal you. I wonder. I wonder if she got sealed to the first one and then, or any of them. Oh, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that is really interesting. I don't know because I feel like her family had a lot of references to God and to praying and things like that, but they weren't specifying. They were saying stuff about Jesus, but they weren't specifying what type of Christianity like the rest of the family practices. And I believe Charles converted, her fourth husband converted to be LDS because he was marrying Lori. But I don't know
Yes.
what she grew up. I wonder if I could find that out quickly because that is really interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
I think her family was raised LDS because I vaguely remember her mother talking about that she was just the most committed to the church.
Mm, that could very well be, but regardless, in any sect of Christianity, it's not going to be looked at as a good thing that you're having all of these divorces. I guess you could say she wasn't living in sin, wasn't necessarily being promiscuous, but she was getting married and divorced a lot, which I'm sure was tough in the church. So she probably bounced around. She also lived in a lot of different places. So I wonder if
Mm-hmm.
LDS was available everywhere.
Yeah, I did just do like a quick Google search, and it said that she was raised Mormon,
Okay.
and raised in a Mormon household. Which I
Yeah,
wonder if that, I do feel like that probably did kind of like shape her
Probably.
susceptibility to being kind of indoctrinated by Chad.
Hmm.
oh,
Well,
absolutely. Because the LDS is its own animal and
Mm-hmm.
controversial of calling it a cult or not, depending on your experience. And I think with her being the most committed, you're taking these doctrines so seriously, which opens you up
Mm-hmm.
to Chad, who it kind of presented himself as this superior spiritual person. If your goal is to be the best version of yourself on earth, why wouldn't you want to follow the person that has the key, right? Like I could see the trail for her.
guys, I just looked down on my notes, 2 lines, and it says Lori grew up LDS. So I
Nailed
guess this
it.
information was at my
Perfect.
fingertips, but I did not. They obviously said it in the documentary. Oh, okay, so confirmed.
Confirmed. And then she had two siblings. She was a middle child, so she had an older brother and younger brother.
She
And we're gonna
had
again see that commitment of like where they drift off to, which I thought was interesting.
so I believe both of her brothers are actually older, Lori and Alex and Adam. That's what I have written anyway, possibly not. And then she has a youngest sister, Summer.
Hmm. I have written one older. We're gonna Google.
We
Thank
could
you,
Google it.
Google.
Yeah. Regardless, she has 2 brothers, Alex and Adam, who are mentioned heavily throughout the documentary. And Summer is barely mentioned. I don't think she's that involved with all of this. But they
Lucky
do
for her.
oh yeah, for real, I would not be in this either.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
her mom looks, if you have context, her mom looks not great in the beginning of the documentary. um but Colby is Lori's first child, and he is a product of her second marriage, which was also pretty short lived, and Colby's biological father not in the picture. And then Lori remarried again to Joe Ryan and had Tylee, and Joe also adopted Colby. So that's important, like context information. And that's when she started doing the beauty pageants, which I thought was such an interesting portion of this. She was like obsessed with how she looked and the beauty pageants and having the perfect life. I just feel like that was something I learned from the docu-series. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, that was interesting. It kind of goes back to like talking about like her siblings and then this her like kind of obsession with her image.
Mhm.
I've always kind of wondered or thought it was interesting to think about how when you are part of a big family or when someone's part of a big family, what makes one of the children like turn out so differently, and in this case turn out to be somebody like so dangerous, because arguably they're all raised really similarly.
Mhm.
I think for Lori it's probably like a combination of possibly her involvement and her family's involvement in the church, but also I know she had some really toxic relationships. Like I think some of her relationships with her previous husbands were pretty toxic and there was some abuse.
Yeah,
And she
oh
probably
definitely.
was always just like kind of praised for her beauty, you know? So she probably just grew up thinking that was important. And she was, I mean, and she was beautiful, and I think that helped her get away with a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, very blonde, very tan, very beautiful. And she did well in beauty pageants. And
Mm-hmm.
I think she probably got a lot of praise and a lot of validation from that. And it is interesting because I get, she's one of four siblings, and you could say that all of these kids turned out extremely different from each other just based on what we know from the series. Um, so they have all the same parents, but I guess they've all been shaped in different ways, and
Mm-hmm.
it's that that combination of nature and nurture. They have essentially all of it because they have the same biological parents. They grew up in the same home, but we're shaped by our outside experiences too, and the way that your parents treat each individual sibling is not necessarily going to be even. And it's you can't treat every kid the same. It's not even possible or realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there was ways that they were all not getting their needs met and all getting their needs met. And the church also has a big impact on the way that you grow up and your social group and what your friends believe in. It shapes you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Um, and then the Wheel of Fortune thing. God told her she was going to win a lot of money, and she
I thought
did.
that was wild.
I think it was 17K that she won. That's that's awesome. And
Hey, at least God was right about something.
yeah, absolutely. This is when she could still hear him back in the day, because now
Can
her
she not
connection
hear him
seems.
anymore?
Yeah, I feel like now it's a bit shaky. Her connection.
Yeah. Well, I do think she's saying that God is telling her that she's gonna get out of prison.
Yes,
So he still must talk sometimes to her.
sure, and and maybe she will. Maybe the rapture is coming.
Yeah.
We'll get we'll see. We'll talk about it at the end if we think that the rapture is coming or not. We can vote. Um, and then they start talking about how Joe was abusive to Colby and Lori, and they start talking about the sexual abuse of Colby,
Which was
which
her third husband that
yeah,
Katie mentioned the abuse with.
yeah, and he adopted Colby, which is extra devastating. And he's obviously Tylee's father, and they had Lori reported the abuse and ended up getting divorced and had a bitter custody battle with Joe. Eventually got primary custody of Tylee. but it was a terrible situation, and Colby is talking about it in the docuseries and obviously seems very affected by it still.
This is one
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I'm not going to do this very often, but I got to give Lori credit for, and I do have to respect her for, because there are particularly people who are strongly religious don't always remove themselves and their children from those situations.
Mm-hmm.
um they go to their church for guidance or tough it out or don't believe the child. Like, Lori was very proactive. She was like, nope, I'm gonna remove me. The minute it started happening, at least I took it as the minute she found out it was happening to her son, not necessarily her but her son, it was okay, we're done. And she it was presented that she very much was like, I'm not going to allow that to happen with my knowledge.
Yeah.
And I do have to give her credit there, that I was very impressed with the execution of that. And it then kind of made sense where she started saying, like, this brought me closer to the temple, because if I didn't go this direction, I think the quote was, it turned me to the temple or I'm going to commit murder or something like that,
Yeah.
which
Mm-hmm.
I feel in my soul. Like, if I
Sure.
ever found that about my kid, I can't say that I would turn to a temple. So, like, the fact that she handled it the way she did, I do have to give her credit for that. I was very proud.
Yeah, that's a great point, and but also I feel like it makes you wonder, how does Lori go from caring so much about her kids, like being able to extract them from that terrible situation, give them a better life, to then transforming into somebody who's capable of, killing her kids. I
Yeah.
think that makes it kind of just makes her transformation that much more shocking.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I feel like we got to kind of ride that with Colby through the series because
Mm-hmm.
at this point, he's really talking about how she advocated for him and took care of him and protected him. And it speaks well of her mothering at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they did say in her early days, she was a really good mom. And I think
Yeah.
that's why people pushed back so hard when allegations started coming out, is because she was that present mom. She was the protective mom. She made all these strives to, her children came first. And even with like her marriage to Charles, there was that question of like, I think she liked him, possibly loved him, but it was more for the financial security, what he could do for her and her kids. Like, it wasn't necessarily, I found this man and I fell in love with him. It was kind of convenience, and then I happened to also develop feelings.
Yeah. You guys have any theories about like kind of what led to Lori's like like transformation? Do you think it was like mostly just like mental illness, kind of toxic combination of her and Chad's personalities, or just curious to know if you guys have any thoughts?
I mean, I got tons of thoughts. I always think a lot, but I think that initially when she was with Charles, it seems like she was in the church, but it wasn't her entire identity.
Mm-hmm.
They lived in Hawaii. It seems like things were going pretty well. They had a pretty normal married life situation. This is when they adopted JJ, and by all accounts, it seems like she was a happily married, mom, involved, like normal person. And then I think it's when she started listening to Chad's podcasts and reading his books and getting really involved in like the prepper movements and stuff. I think that's why she became under this spell, essentially, why it became so extreme.
I also think that she, again, was looking for a superior like, she, because she was so invested in the church and being the best member that she could be. Even though Charles converted for her, I don't think she ever saw him as the equal. and
Mm-hmm.
she wanted someone who could lead her spiritually. Because again, in the Mormon church, you're looking at, there is still that gender division. There is still, the man holds the priesthood and leads women into the holy kingdom. So I'm wondering if the door was open for the manipulation by Chad, was that he was claiming to be that spiritual person for her who could bring her into the afterlife, bring her to fund their planet or whatever version you want. I
Yeah.
think as she was looking for that, that opened that, and then plus the charismatic personality he had opened the
Ick.
manipulation. I When it comes to mental illness, I think it's definitely him who has more of the mental illness. I think she was just susceptible to it. And I think it
Yeah.
just, the brainwashing started. Do you have a theory?
I mean, you guys are pretty much echoing a lot of what I what I think. Um, just to add on to what you said, Crystal. Yeah, I think you're right. I think she was looking for somebody to lead her spiritually, but I also think that she probably got a lot of validation too from Chad for like recognizing her as being like this amazing spiritual person, but at the same time being like, oh well, like you're exceptional, but you need to follow me, and I'll like, you know, take you the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the way, basically. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
no, those are all good points. I agree.
Well, I think that she was kind of bored with her life and
Mm-hmm.
lonely. And I think, when Colby's talking about how Lori seemed to be jealous of his wife and
Like,
wasn't
might I add, ew?
accepting, yeah,
Yeah.
which I don't know, obviously, if there was any real points of contention, but it seems like Lori was kind of the mother in law from hell, and she wasn't accepting, she wasn't warm, she acted jealous, she didn't even bring Tylee to the wedding. Like, she did a lot of weird things, and that to me speaks of somebody who is immature and somebody who has a lot of dependencies on her kids. And maybe, JJ's in school full time, she's bored of Charles, she doesn't work, maybe she just needed something to make her feel really special. She was getting too old to do the pageants. So I think, like Katie, you make a good point that she was susceptible to it because he made her feel really special. And I think she thought it was special to like have spiritual gifts. So she sort of manifested, hallucinated, whatever you want to say, some sort of spiritual psychosis. But I also kind of agree. I think Chad's the more, although I kind of go back and forth on it because you could kind of look at it either way. Part of me thinks Chad is faking it and that he does not actually believe any of this stuff.
I don't think he needs
Interesting.
to necessarily believe it to orchestrate like she did. I think she believed it 100%. I think that's how she got brought in. I don't necessarily think he did, but I do think she does. Because
But
even
you don't
before
think
Chad
that
existed,
makes.
she had God speaking to her. She's the reason. God's the reason they moved to Hawaii. He told her in a loud voice, "Move
Mm,
Hawaii." So like, there were
that's
God told her
true.
to go on Wheel of Fortune. Like these were things that were
True.
already in her life before Chad. I think he just found that and then was like, "This is how I manipulate." Personally,
Hmm. But does that make him crazier or more sane?
well, I
Mm-hmm.
think we need to give a little background on Chad since we're talking about him. Like, he also had
Sure.
started things prior to meeting Lori. It wasn't like he met Lori in a crowded room and they decided to have this crazy religious rendezvous. like, they met at a religious conference and she knew of him through, I think, the podcast, if I remember.
Yeah,
And
preparing a people.
yeah. So like he also was already in this religious space and claiming to be in a superior spiritual position
Yeah.
than the majority.
That's true. He was kind of like a he was putting it out there and like seeing if he could get followers, I think.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
Lori just happened to take the bait.
I think you nailed it. I think his goal was to build a bigger group and nobody else fell for it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Also, one thing I wanted to say that kind of relates to what you said, Monica, about her being bored with her life. I also got that sense.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, the main kind of story as to why she killed her kids was because they were zombies, right? And that's what she believed. But there's also part of me that thinks that she was just, like, bored of being a mom. Like, I think she just wanted to go off and, like, live this life with Charles and, like, travel and live in Hawaii, be the spiritual leader with him. And it kind of reminds me of, like, this TikTok I saw. It's really silly. It was, like, a woman in, like, a Judge Judy type thing. And she had two kids, and she's just like, yeah, I just decided that I don't want to have kids. And the judge is like, it doesn't work like that. You already have kids.
Mm.
Anyway, that's just that's just
Yeah.
my own kind of theory.
I do think she kind of thought the kids were dragging her down, honestly. Also, I think Chad speaking about the rapture so much, if she believed it, which I go back and forth as well, if I think Lori truly believes it. To me, I think Lori believes it more than I think Chad believes it, but I think they both believe it to some extent because otherwise they just could not continue to breathe and live. Um, but I think that the rapture coming and that the planet's going to explode, whatever's going to happen, the world's going to end. I think that she was just able to kind of abandon her responsibilities because what does it matter if the world's going to end?
Yeah.
Yeah, which brings back to that 144,000, I think is the number.
Yeah, it's 144,000.
Yeah, which you see in a couple of different groups of
Mm-hmm.
who's the end of times and that's kind of where he had his ranking system, right? Because
Yeah.
he developed his own system. I think was it 1 through 5 where
I wrote it down.
you are a light or a dark, so a good or a bad. And then like there was a rank of that, how far you are from the middle. And
Mm-hmm.
Chad, being this all-knowing being, just knew what people's numbers and codes were. And
Right.
I think because you see that in a couple of people, and they did have one person in the documentary who was it kind of made me giggle because she is someone who also ranks people, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't murder anybody. So they like presented her as this like authority in a way where she's like, well, I know this because I talk for the light. But like if you ask Chad, he's also going to tell you that. So to me, the
I
really
know.
only difference is the fact you didn't kill people. That's the only reason why you have an authority position on this.
Yeah, because basically it's not a problem for you to have these wacky beliefs unless you're going to hurt somebody. And then now it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, just you think whatever you want. And she also thinks that Chad's system was not correct because he would do it um, from 6L to 6D. That's what it was. So you could either be a little bit light and be around a 2L, or you could be more of a little bit dark. You know what I mean? It's a sliding scale.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the D&D chaotic evil and chaotic good
Yeah.
ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot
And
like that.
it was always like coincidentally the people who were giving them a hard time and the people they didn't like. They were always the dark spirits.
Well,
Right. Anybody that
yeah.
annoyed them clearly was a dark.
Yeah. Well, he borrowed a little bit from here and a little bit from there, from the Book of Mormon, from the Bible, from his own near death experiences, quotes himself a lot. He
He
wrote all
does
these
quote
books.
himself a lot.
Yeah. And
Well, he would quote himself also from his past lives, which he liked to bring
mm,
up a lot. And even he told Lori that they were married in multiple times throughout their past lives. They showed some text chains in the documentary, which I always love.
Me too.
Um, but they feel icky. Like very obsessive, very, again, they're both
Hmm.
married at the time too, to other people. And they're
Yeah.
having these very inappropriate conversations about past marriages and commitment and ranking systems. And that starts leading into ranking people in their family, their friends, their children. Now everybody around, of course, they have sixes. They're 6Ls. They're the best of the best. But nobody's
Obviously.
else is even close.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And this is when Lori starts to think that Charles is actually dead and that he is possessed by a demon named Ned Schneider, which is the most insane name for
For a
a
demon, yeah.
zombie. I just thought that was so bizarre. Um,
Yeah, it was.
yeah. And so Lori starts, obviously, what you do in that situation is you start telling everybody that Charles is cheating. So she's telling everybody that'll listen that Charles has been cheating. And Colby ends up confronting him, and Charles denies this. And this is when Charles starts raising concerns, and he goes away. And for a business trip, Lori cancels his return flight. She moved his car. She moved all of his stuff out, took all of the money out of their bank accounts. And then this is when we get back to that body cam footage in the beginning where Charles is flipping out.
Yeah. And honestly, it's kind of, on Lori's end, it's actually really smart because
Yeah.
everything that Charles is saying is true, but it just sounds so crazy. And because she is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And like this whole story that Lori has, which is all made up, of him cheating just seems so much more plausible, you know? So I think that's why she had such an easy time convincing her family and the police.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I mean,
And it's like
whose
a
story?
PR,
Yeah, whose
right?
story
Like,
sounds more believable?
yeah, who,
yeah,
but also like get ahead of it. The first story
Yeah,
you hear, if you want to or not, it's going to be the one that's in the back of your head. So
that's
now,
true.
no matter who you hear second, they're playing defense. If you mean it to or not, they're most likely playing defense. And
Yeah.
Lori had that interview. They brought Lori in after he made these claims on the police, and she talked her way out of it. Like,
mm-hmm.
very charismatic, very calm, very like gained a little bit of, I don't want to say friendship because it's not the word I want, but like camaraderie maybe with the
Yeah.
officer. Like it became very casual, and you could tell after a little while he was like, "Yeah, this is a waste of my time." When
Mm-hmm.
it should have been more.
Sure, but she
Yeah,
seems very calm and she seems like very reasonable about what she's saying. And how many times have you heard that someone has a crazy ex, but really the person saying they were crazy was just cheating on them the whole time and that's why they were being so crazy? I feel like that happens all the time. Whereas you saying that your wife thinks she's a god, that doesn't sound like something that would actually happen.
yeah,
So for the
Right.
police, it's like, what's more reasonable? She seems fine. She doesn't seem like someone having a spiritual psychosis, thinks she's a god. She's not saying anything about that while she's in there. She's behaving very normally.
yeah,
Well,
So,
she was
and
also
yeah,
evaluated and they didn't find
yeah,
anything.
yeah. She said, they said she was not a danger. She was not committed and she was free to go.
yeah. I wonder. I feel like she was able to talk herself out of that situation with the police um, so easily, and like you said, she was so calm. You almost wonder if that like gave her some confidence that she would be able to get away with like killing the people that she eventually did. Because when she was questioned by the police after Charles died, and even after her kids went missing, she kind of acted the same exact way. She was like she was very calm. She was charismatic. until it got a little bit more serious, and then she kind of just stopped talking. But that was something that really kind of stood out to me is I feel like Lori was pretty like she was pretty smart up until she killed her victims, and then it seemed like she had no real plan other than she was going to sweet talk her way out of it, which seems pretty dumb to me.
Well, also the rapture.
I didn't consider that. Maybe she was really banking on the rapture.
I honestly, I think that's like kind of the whole problem. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what she was really, really betting on. And I think that she just didn't want to suffer up until the rapture if that was avoidable. Um, but yeah, I don't think she thought she was going to have any consequences from any of this. And I agree with you that she gained confidence through this experience because she basically evicted Charles from his own life
Mm-hmm.
and really didn't have any consequences of that. And then Charles is still trying to get somebody to help him. He's emailing family, the kids, everybody's like, "Oh, we don't really want to get involved in your marriage problems. You know, Lori said you were cheating." Basically,
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Deal with your own problems." And that's when he um finds those emails that Lori sent to Chad from Charles pretending to set up an arrangement for them to meet, which I thought was also pretty crafty. Makes me think she's not
Mm-hmm.
psychotic because
Yeah.
it's so methodical
I
in some
also think
ways.
she, in all the previous things, kind of what Katie was talking about, she also, I think, knew that technically she hasn't done anything illegal yet. So what are you going to do? Arrest her for removing her, kicking her husband out of the house? Not illegal. Taking the children? Not illegal. Like, I think she also knew in the back of her head that she was doing some messed up stuff and definitely playing chess, but at this point, she hadn't done anything illegal yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
I thought about that a lot actually. So from Colby's perspective, like Charles was coming to him and being like, "Your mom is crazy. She's a danger to herself and others." And of course, Lori was saying that, "Oh, don't listen to him. He's just mad because I caught him cheating." But I feel like Charles was really persistent. I like to think that if I were in Colby's shoes, I would have taken Charles a little bit more seriously. But I don't know that I would have. It's like such a tricky situation.
well, one thing I will say I found very unrelatable is a little bit later on the documentary, Colby's wife said that they did not even read all of the emails that Charles sent about Lori being crazy and all. Like, I would have read
Mm-hmm.
everything for sure, and I
Right.
would
Yeah.
have asked follow-up questions. I wouldn't have just not read it because this has got to be, I mean, I know they just had a baby and they were busy with their own lives, but your
Mm-hmm.
stepdad, who you consider like a father figure, is saying that your mom is psychotic
Yeah.
and you're not going to read the emails.
I wonder
That's true.
though.
I forgot about that relationship. Like they did have a super close relationship.
Yeah.
And also you would think like so maybe he is like annoyed with Charles. He's on his mom's side, but wouldn't you at least be concerned enough to be involved if you thought your mom and your siblings were living with this guy who was accusing you of being like totally crazy? Because that's not a safe or
Well,
pleasant situation for his mom
that's
or
true
siblings to
too.
be in. So I mean, I feel like either way that he was looking at it, he probably should have taken it more seriously. It's, I don't mean
Giving
to be too
him
critical
a
of him on his shoes, but go
I
ahead,
just
Cecily.
I don't know. I think giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt though, like coming
Mm-hmm.
listening to a lot of the wife, his so I can't remember her name. Um Colby's wife, insert name here.
Kelsey.
Thank
Kelsey.
you. I think she may have been a little bit more to be related to why he didn't read them. It kind of came across that there was some kind of conversation of it's me or your mother
Mm-hmm.
because there was a lot of toxic behavior the mom was expressing towards their relationship. And I got to wonder of, particularly after the baby was born, it was, I need you present. I need you to stop worrying about your mom. She's doing this to get your attention for another because the last thing didn't work. Like, I'm wondering if there was also that dynamic of
Mhm.
it's one more thing your mom's trying to do to like pull you and keep your attention away from me and your family. Like, it feels very tough. Like, I think he was in a really hard circumstance. So if your wife is sitting at home being like, stop engaging, stop reading them, I could see how that would be easily. I mean, the emails will be there. I'll read them another time. Like,
That's the thing.
Yeah, such a good point.
Yeah. And maybe there was always a new drama with Lori, with Charles, with their
yeah.
whole dynamic. They make it seem like everything was just hunky dory up till this point, but I wonder if maybe I bet Lori has always had a flair for the dramatic, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was always something up with her, always some new problem. And so maybe it was just a lot and they just couldn't deal with it. But I mean, Charles was extremely persistent, and I don't know
Gotta
what
give
else
him
he could have
respect.
really done. I I feel like he exhausted all his options. He emailed Tammy, Chad's wife, and he also was emailing Lori's brothers, Adam and Alex. Adam was helping Charles and tried to fly in to arrange a family intervention, where Alex was, I guess, Team Lori, very
Yeah.
much so.
Well, keep in mind, Alex also was the more religious one. He was the one that was on board with the Doomsday. He was on board with Chad's ranking system. He definitely was the one that him and Lori kind of had those mindsets that were a little more similar. It came across, we don't know a lot about Adam's background, but definitely more separated from the church. So I think he was the one that Charles kind of went to, was like, hey, you seem to be the rational one here. Help me.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
Yeah, for
I feel
sure.
like it was kind of manipulative on what was the brother's name? Adam?
Yeah.
On his part, because I got the sense that Charles went to Adam for help, and Adam was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna help you," but while he was saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna help you" to Charles, he was actually, like you said, Crystal, Team Lori. Did you guys get that impression too?
I don't think so. There's two
Oh,
different
okay.
brothers, though.
yeah, there's Adam and Alex.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alex.
Yes.
Oh
No,
yeah, initially Alex was acting like he was gonna be
yeah.
on Charles's side and help, but
Hmm.
I mean, we have the benefit of seeing how it plays out, and yeah, I do agree with that.
No, I
Especially
think
for
yeah,
Charles.
he tried every avenue and I don't think he realized how intertwined Alex was at that point when he first reached
Mm,
out too.
Hmm.
yeah, probably not.
Yeah, he, like you said, he was probably just trying to exhaust all his options.
Yeah, definitely. And Adam was willing to help, but unfortunately, um, Charles is shot by Alex in allegedly a self-defense situation. I'm a little unclear kind of as to the
There's
what
no way.
actually happened here. It doesn't make sense. Also, I feel like there's a variation of different stories about who was actually present at the time of this incident and who left the scene immediately afterwards. What did you guys think of the scenario? Classic self-defense?
Oh, yeah. They wanted to kill him and they did. That's what
Yeah,
I think happened. And they
totally.
tried to make it look like self-defense.
Well, he said Charles came at him with a bat. Or no, no, no. Charles was attacking him and Tylee came at him with a bat. I was a little unclear about who had the bat.
Well, I
Yeah, they
think
did say Tylee was involved somehow, which was a
well,
little
she came
strange.
involved later. So that was one of the reasons PD started kind of looking into it a little more because Al- Alex's version and Lori's version didn't match up. And then
Mhm.
Tylee's now present. So there it kept morphing and their stories weren't consistent. And I think that's when police started being like, hold on. And then looking at the scene a little deeper than just taking your word for it. Um, the end story, to my understanding, and I could be wrong, this is just from what I took, because like you said, it was kind of confusing.
Yeah.
um the Alex and Charles were arguing verbally, and the original story said he had a bat, but then Tylee said she had the bat, came out because she didn't want them arguing. Charles and Alex got physical with each other. Alex went upstairs or went to another room, got a gun, came back, and shot him.
Right.
Right.
But Lori, and this is where I'm unclear, came, got the children, and then left. Was Lori there the whole time? Did she come pick up the kids? That's the part I never could figure out. Because
Yeah.
the kids were present.
They were
Yeah.
present.
I
And
think,
then they left to go to Walgreens, Burger King, and she took JJ to school after his father just got shot.
yeah, I feel like the reason that I really feel like there's foul play here is because of how they handled it afterwards.
Oh,
Like you said,
definitely.
Monica, like she just went about her business afterwards, and
Hmm.
also the way that she broke the news of Charles's death to his children was so
Oh,
wildly inappropriate. So she sent
God.
them a group text, didn't even call, and then left them on red. They obviously were all responding, calling her, and then she just left them on red basically for hours, not responding.
I actually wrote down the text. Can I just read it real quick? This
Please.
is how Lori tells Charles's four sons. Hi, boys. I have very sad news. Your father passed away yesterday. I'm making arrangements and I'll keep you informed with what's going on. I'm still not sure how to handle things. Just know that I love you and so did your dad. Two exclamation points.
You don't love me if
So
you're sending a text.
yeah.
A text. And then to go radio silent is crazy. And we see the sons
Yeah.
start texting back. They're blowing up her phone. She's just totally ignoring them.
And also 24 hours later. Like,
Ugh.
granted, listen, everyone needs a moment, assuming she's innocent, which she's not. But, like, even if you need to take a second, you need to inform their like your children. That's not something you like wait a while to tell someone. That's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
And she
definitely not something you drop on someone in a text and then don't ghost
And then
them.
yeah, right.
no
I think,
context. And
yeah,
she
I
told
think one of
some
the kids.
people he had a heart attack. She told
Hmm.
JJ's school that he killed himself. Like there's all these different stories just floating about. Just the most
Again,
inappropriate.
I think why PD was like, all right, now we're lying about what happened. Another
Hmm.
red flag.
Yeah, that's not something. That's not a way an innocent person would handle that situation.
Yeah, definitely not. And she called the life insurance real quick too, which is
Hmm.
also kind of suspicious. I feel like that's come up several times in other cases and certainly a big deal in this case, life insurance. But she called and she was no longer Charles's benefactor on his insurance, so she didn't
I
get the
love that for
policy.
him.
Me
I
too.
know,
Love
because
that
he
for
I'm glad
knew
he
him.
did that.
he knew that she was nuts. So he put his sister, who is JJ's grandmother, in charge of his life insurance and made her the beneficiaries of everything. But Lori was still entitled to Charles's social security. So she said she would get 4K a month for that.
Which is still a decent amount, but I think that just shows how how much he knew that she was real about what she was saying. It wasn't like
Yeah.
in the heat of the moment you say, I hate you, I'm gonna kill you. Like, I think it finally set in at some point, because obviously he changed it. At some point it sunk in of like, oh, she's serious. And he made preparations because he knew it was a matter of when, not a matter of if, which is a really, really unfortunate realization you have to have.
Yeah, the only thing I think he maybe could have done better was just like ran, like just gotten as far away from her as possible. but hindsight's 2020.
Right. And like you have the kids but again,
Right.
Yeah.
divorce is an option. Divorce and run. Like I completely see that point 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think he was worried about JJ. Um
Yeah.
and he was trying, like, he was asking if he could just have him when the whole incident with Alex happened. Obviously, in hindsight, would have been way better for Lori to just give Charles JJ,
Mm-hmm.
but that clearly wasn't an option. And Charles did have about $1 million in life insurance, and I think that was a big factor in why divorce wasn't an option in this case.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think we're all kind of on the same page about Charles. Was she convicted for Charles' murder? Or just
I
for
think recently
JJ?
she was.
She was? Okay. What
It's
do you
one.
guys think happened with Alex? Because that was
So with
interesting.
the thing with Charles or with Alex in general?
So Alex died, right?
Yeah. So there was an autopsy,
Mm-hmm.
and this is after he marries Zulema, who's like a friend of Lori's from their cult. Um and he apparently had a blood clot. That's what I've been able to find, and apparently he had issues with his blood pressure, had hypertension, and they had a history of similar issues in the family. And um so that's like believable, but I read several different things that said that he had pink foam coming out of his mouth after he was found, and that is also what happened with Tammy, Chad's wife. So makes me think, ah,
Yeah,
that's probably not a coincidence.
the timing of it is just so suspicious.
I think you're right with the timing is suspicious, but also it's the proximity, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have so many people that are connected to this couple that are popping up dead, either or attempted to be killed, either by suspicious behavior or an accident or whatever the case is. And it feels very easy that all of a sudden the person who shot your brother, your ex-husband, excuse me, the person that can prove if you are connected to it magically can no longer speak. It's very convenient, particularly
Mm-hmm.
when you have police starting to kind of zone in a little bit more, because you have police being like, hey, he was shot, but you didn't call for help until 45 minutes later. He was shot upright and after he was on the ground. If it was a self defense, he's shot once, he's on the ground. The threat is over. Now it's overkill or it's over intentional. There was no attempt to save him, even though on the phone you'd said that you did. Like there was a lot of things that didn't match up that the police were starting to zone in on. And then all of a sudden, he dies. Seems
Yeah,
very convenient.
very
A
convenient.
lot of convenient, suspicious deaths here. And, one would be tragic, but I think when this happens multiple times surrounding the same person, it's pretty obvious that they have some role that they're playing in it. It's way too much of a coincidence, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the documentary kind of glossed over his death a little more quickly than the others.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
I
no, I
think it's
agree.
just because of lack of information. Like, I don't
yeah.
think there was a huge investigation on it. I think, right? Because you have the autopsy and it's just like, here's the findings. And I think it kind of closed that door while there were bigger fish to fry, for lack of better words. But I agree. I wish they had kind of put more context in it because I think his marriage also started to change his mindset a little bit, it seemed
Mm-hmm.
like his wife brought him a little perspective maybe and softened him a little bit and like I don't know. I wish that we had more information on their relationship.
Yeah. I think you're I do think you're onto something. Like I think he was just getting a little too far outside their control. And also they probably figured too, if he wasn't around anymore, if Alex wasn't around anymore, the police would probably stop looking at
Mm-hmm.
Charles's death so closely because Alex was the one who killed Charles. And he admitted to that. He admitted to it was self defense, but I think that was probably a big motivation for them too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Agreed, because he's Lori's fall guy, I think, for
Mm-hmm.
everything. And if the fall guy passes away, that's even more convenient, honestly, because now he can't turn on you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah, so we have the brother gone. We have the Lori's husband gone. So the only thing in the way of their spiritual forever matrimony is Chad's wife, who in this moment, they're still married. She's alive, kicking. I will say he did upgrade though from a physical, like general standard of beauty. He really did go from like 0 to like 180 on preferences. Like, I'm just saying, like,
Wow.
brunette, a
You're not
little bit more
lying. You're not wrong.
tomboy to like beauty pageant. Like, it really is two completely different types of women.
He ain't got no type.
Just saying.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. I think that Lori was the hot new thing for him. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah,
I
Pretty
mean,
definitely.
exciting.
it's not like he was anything to look at either. So, like, again, like, he really did upgrade or find the arm candy or whatever cringy terms you want to use. But, like, I think, Katie, you mentioned it, like, she wasn't, I don't want to say she's a prize, but she looked at herself very material, like outside is very important. And I think
Mm-hmm.
he had that probably same, oh my God, you're so beautiful, you're so perfect mentality about her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, Lori is very conventionally attractive. And I think Chad at the end of the day is just a guy. And I think he wanted to be with Lori no matter what. And yeah, Tammy was standing in their way. And I think that they thought that, this was obviously the best. They thought that this was the best way to get rid of her was to kill her.
Well, you forget one thing is it wasn't really Tammy anymore. She was possessed by a demon named Viola.
Yes. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot about the names.
So it's, I mean, she gets shot at by a paintball gun. It doesn't rid her of the dark spirit. So she, fortunately, unfortunately, I guess, depending on how you look at it, she passes away in her sleep. A 49-year-old healthy woman just, she just passes in her sleep and gets cremated very quickly.
In
And
October 2019 is when she died.
right. And she had life insurance, $430,000 that Chad was the beneficiary of. So he got that little windfall. And then, oh, that's also right after that, Chad and Lori told Alex that he had to marry their friend Zulema, and he took her last name, which I thought was interesting. And that's who he
How
ends up dying
progressive
with.
of him.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then the world is going to end July 22nd, 2020. That's what Chad thought.
So I have a note in here that Tammy was not immediately cremated. She was buried, her body was exhumed, and then it was cremated.
I thought she was cremated. But
Well,
maybe I'm wrong.
I the reason I have this note here is there apparently, again, Alex getting some kind of clarity when he was married. I think he started to realize he was a fall guy because there was a brief moment in one of the interviews where they were discussing how she he really started to kind of question his role in this dynamic.
Mhm.
because I think did he die? He died after Tammy, right?
Yeah, I just meant I don't think Tammy got autopsied. I think
Was it
Alex
Alex
did.
that was exhumed?
Alex definitely had an autopsy.
Yeah, because he had the blood clot runs in family. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if like after
But
Tammy's death was when he opened his eyes of like, oh wow, they're gonna try to blame that on me too. And then that's when he was taken out. I don't have my timeline.
I think it was a little bit later because Alex did end up moving to Idaho, to Rexburg with Lori, and they lived in that like same townhouse complex together.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was immediate, but I think that may have started his deprogramming,
Yeah.
maybe is the word I want.
Maybe. I think he definitely knew that he was ultimately going to get blamed for everything. By the end, I think he knew that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. So I also want to, this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So if we're not ready to go there, let me know. But I also think like once Chad and Lori killed the kids, I am always just so shocked when people bury the bodies of their victims in their backyards. Like that just always seems like
I
such a bad
know.
idea to me.
Such a bad idea.
It's just
You ever watch
rookie
those?
move.
Yeah, those videos of like, oh, just plant like an endangered plant over the body so they can't dig it up, or like those crazy
Yeah,
TikTok things.
yeah.
I think some
It's
people get a pool put over it or like a deck or something. Get some
that would have
concrete
been a
laid.
better idea. I think so. What ultimately happened was to cover their tracks. Chad sent Lori a text saying, "Oh, there's a groundhog running along, or not a groundhog, a raccoon that's been running along the fence line. I shot it and I buried it in like the pet cemetery." And that was their and the kids were buried in the pet cemetery. So that text was his way of like covering their tracks. It just
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a lot of effort. I don't know.
No, I don't. I think that shows like he truly believed his own nonsense that he was not going to get
Mm-hmm.
in trouble for any of this. Otherwise, they would have done a better job covering it up. I
Yeah,
think they were
I
very
think you're
confident.
definitely right. I think you're right about that. Because the way that they acted after the murders was just very, very nonchalant, very confident that they were going to get away with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this kind of brings us to the point in the documentary where the kids are missing essentially. JJ's grandparents are starting to kind of freak out and they're trying to get in touch with Lori, they're trying to get in touch with JJ. She has a lot of excuses about why they can't talk to him and they end up calling the police.
Mm-hmm.
And is that where we want to leave off for today and we could pick up another day?
Yeah, I think Katie gave us some great foreshadowing on what's to come. Obviously, there's a big debacle of what happened, when it happened, and where are the kids, because Colby starts going after it, the grandparents start going in, and no one has any answers for a long time until the bodies are found in the pet cemetery.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Katie, we're going to try to get you back on for part 2 and we're going to talk about the rest of the series.
Okay, that sounds great. I had so much fun. Thank you guys so much.
Oh my gosh, we're so glad that you joined us.
Yes, and we can't wait to do part 2.
Yes. All right. Well, we will pick up right here next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.